All right, so motivation comes and goes, and it's really not something that you can always have control over. But recently, I've come out of a pretty extended period of time of not having motivation in school. And so I want to share a few insights that I've had about, how to build that motivation back up again, how to become motivated for the things that are important in your life, or the things that you want to do well in your life. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Some actionable items, some mindset shifts that you can take on to help build that motivation back up again. So you can, enjoy the work you're doing, enjoy the things you're doing, whether that is school or some aspect of your work, or maybe it's fitness or gym or whatever it is. It's really nice. It's really awesome to have motivation. Discipline is always praised as the thing that's going to get you the distance. And while that's true, having motivation, a good chunk of the time is really nice. It's really nice to wake up and to want to do the work, to want to do the difficult things. It makes the whole process a lot more enjoyable. And also, it makes the whole process a lot more sustainable, because discipline is great, but even that has its limits. And so if you exclusively rely on that, that's going to take you on a path to burnout. So we want to build that motivation. And what's one thing that I've done recently that has allowed me to see, a 2, 3, 4x increase in my amount of motivation for school, for work, for different aspects of my life, and that is to heavily cut out or mitigate social media, specifically short form content. Okay, so I put out a video a couple weeks ago about short form content and how it's really not good for motivation. And so since then, I've really been on my no social media mindset, and I've seen the results already. I feel so much better about waking up and doing the work. I feel so much better about going for the run, going for a walk, even just being out here with the nature surrounding me. Everything feels a lot better. Everything, all the experiences are so much more enjoyable when you are not being constantly stimulated by short form content. It's funny because I used to spend almost no time on social media at all. And then over the course of the past year, I progressively used it more and more again. And I thought, I'm consuming educational content. I'm consuming content about fitness, lifestyle, productivity. This is all good things. And while that's true, okay, especially the short form stuff, it hurts you so much more than it thinks. It really just kills that attention span. It kills that drive. It kills that motivation, because it's so much easier to just go and see somebody else talk about or do the thing instead of you actually doing it. And so if you constantly build up that habit of always, retreating from the thing you're doing, the thing you should be doing, to the short form content, building that habit is just not an effective thing. You're training your brain to be so uncomfortable with a little bit of boredom, a little bit of discomfort. And so when there's ever a little bit of discomfort or boredom in the thing that you're doing, that you're trying to enjoy, you got to pick up your phone. And that really kills motivation, because if you're trying to do schoolwork, okay, well, naturally schoolwork isn't the most enthralling task. It's not like it's a 10 out of 10 super fun activity, okay? So naturally there's a little bit of discomfort there. And if you have trained your brain to always want to go on social media, to always get that like short form, that burst of dopamine, whenever you have a little bit of discomfort, then every time you go to study and get that discomfort, you're gonna want to be pulled away to the social media. And I've really experienced this since then. Since I've been back on, minimizing my social media use, I've been restricting my Instagram use to once a week. I check it once on Saturday. I see the few things that I want to see. I check my messages, and that's my use for Instagram for the week. So I get the good out of it. I get the things that I want out of it, but I don't get the negatives of it. I don't get it, taking away my ability to just be okay with not having constant stimulation all the time, right? By reducing my input to just once a week, Saturday, okay? I get any good that is there without it just constantly sapping my motivation throughout the week. A month ago, if I was bored in a class, because I don't always pay attention in class, usually I learn a lot of stuff on my own, I would open Instagram and I would look at my, fitness content, my lifestyle content, whatever it was, okay? And I didn't think that this was really the thing that was sapping away my motivation. But within a week of, cutting that out, I felt it. And now it's been multiple weeks, and I feel it even more. I kid you not, it's not a 10% difference, it's not a 20% difference, it's a 2x difference, a 3x difference, a 4x difference in my motivation and how much I want to do the work and how much I enjoy everything else in life, just from reducing the amount of short form content that I consume. It's nice to, feel bored again, okay? Like when I wait for the bus, I just sit there and I just stand there, and it's okay. There is a little bit of discomfort there, but I just sit there with that discomfort, it's 10 minutes. I can just sit there and I can just stand there. I don't need the excess stimulation that would come from opening Instagram during this time, because, even though I know that would make me feel better in the moment, I know that overall throughout the week, it's going to sap my motivation. It's going to make me enjoy everything else less. So the trade-off just isn't worth it. Okay. And so, yeah, I kind of come up with this conclusion on my own recently. And then a few days later, I saw this video on YouTube from Harvard Business Review. And it gave a proper explanation about why, by having that boredom, why not constantly picking up your phone is so important for your brain and so healthy for your brain. Not only does it sap your motivation, not only does it sap your attention span, it is linked to depression, anxiety, all these other things. And if you just trust and you take the leap and you just say, hey, you know what, I'm just gonna try it. Okay, I'm just gonna try it. It's a period of time. I'm not doing this forever. I'm just gonna try what a week feels like. I'm just gonna try what 2 weeks feel like. Okay, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel the instant difference. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. They're gonna feel a little bit, uncomfortable. But then it's gonna start feeling a little bit more, freeing. You're gonna be able to sit there and be like, yeah, but I'm a little bit bored right now. There's a little bit of discomfort here, but that's good. That's a sign that I'm a healthy operating individual. And then there's one other thing that I want to mention. Is that when you have a pull to go on social media, there is some discomfort there, right? There's discomfort in choosing not to do it, right? Even now for me, right? It's been a couple of weeks, but I stand there, I'm waiting for the bus, and there's a little bit of discomfort in not just pulling out my phone and checking something on Instagram or checking, whatever it is, okay? There's discomfort there, but there's also discomfort in never feeling motivated. There's also discomfort in having no attention span and not being able to focus on the people in front of you or not being able to pick up a book and read it. There's also discomfort in having anxiety or something like this or overthinking. And there's also discomfort in not making progress towards your goals. And all of these things are linked to the social media. So you pick your discomfort, right? Do you want the little bit of discomfort, the temporary discomfort that comes from just not picking up your phone and going on social media? Or do you want the major discomforts that come from your act of choosing to pick it up? You're sacrificing a very small thing for a much larger drawback. And so to me, that's just not worth it. And so again, I just want to emphasize this, limiting your social media will have a positive effect on the amount you're motivated. It will have a positive effect on the amount you enjoy the things around you. It will have a positive effect on your mood. It will have a positive effect on your attention span. And all it takes is a little bit of discomfort a few times a day when you have the pull to go on your phone. Okay, so the trade-off's there. It's up to you to take it. But that's one of the biggest things that I've done to increase my motivation in the past month. Now, the next insight I have on improving your motivation for school, for work, whatever it is to update your mindset. And there's a few mindset shifts that I want to talk about that has helped me, not just recently, but also over the course of my last, few years of my kind of self-improvement journey that has really given me a lot of motivation throughout the year. So the first mindset shift that I want you to take is that you should really try to adopt a learner's mindset in as many things as you can. I remember 2-3 years ago, I had first discovered the concept of self-improvement. And so, there's these people on the internet, they're telling you, go to the gym, go talk to people, go outside, start meditating, start journaling, start doing this, cut out all your bad habits. And I didn't care about being optimal at this point. All I cared about was, these people are saying it, I'm just going to try it. Okay. And so I would just try it and I felt better. And was it perfect? No. I would always make mistakes. I'd always slip up on certain things. And I'm, hundreds of times further in many of those metrics now than I was. But that learner's mindset that I had back then was one of the biggest things, that I would totally switch and I would totally bring back right now. And it's something I'm working on integrating again, because back then it was just, hey, this thing is good for me. I'm going to do that. It was no overthinking. It was no I'm going to try to make the perfect workout plan for me. What is the perfect, daily journaling prompt for me? What is the best way to integrate this into my schedule? There was none of this. It was just, I'm trying to improve in every aspect of my life. I'm trying to improve in school. I'm trying to improve in the gym. I'm trying to improve in my relationships. I'm trying to improve my social skills. It was just that. And so I was taking the joy in just learning, just growing, even though I didn't have the knowledge at this time, right? I was just in a learner's mindset, and it felt so motivating just to constantly be taking the steps that I thought were the best. Fast forward now, and I'm just constantly thinking, okay, what is the most optimal thing that I can do? How can I make this better? How can I make this better? And this constant over-optimizing, it takes away from the motivation, right? Because the whole point was to, make your life better, to improve in these aspects of your life, right? And if the over-optimization is taking away from that, then it's not something that is valuable. That's not something we should be spending our time on. So just adopting this learner's mindset of just being okay to see this thing, I'm going to go improve on it. If I fail, I fail. I know I'm going to be learning. So all the overthinking, it really, can be good for certain things. It can lead to some results, but doing is what actually leads to the results. Taking action is just, the most effective thing. Back then, I didn't have any of the knowledge I had right now, but I had the mindset that I was just here to improve. And so now the one thing I want to take from back then from 3 years ago is to just turn my brain off and continue taking the actions that I know is good. Okay, so stop worrying about is this the perfect sleep schedule for me, and to just realize that, hey, I like waking up early, I like getting up, getting some work done right away, then going outside, maybe reading, journaling, meditating, whatever it is. I like doing all these habits, and to just turn my brain off and realize that, hey, these little actions, even though they don't seem as important nowadays, allow yourself to take pride in doing them. Allow yourself to take pride in waking up early. Allow yourself to, take pride in getting up and doing 10 push-ups in the morning, let's say. These things, as you grow, as you develop, you might grow to see them as silly or like not necessary. But these are things that motivated you. They motivated me, 3 years ago, getting up. Okay, I'm gonna go outside. It's pitch dark out. I'm gonna do like 10 push-ups. Okay, if that's what you need, if that's things that still make you feel good, okay, then let yourself enjoy those. Let those things be the things that generate that motivation for you. Let yourself take pride in these actions. And I don't mean pride isn't a bad thing. It's like, oh, I'm proud of myself. I did that. Okay, take that mindset. Take that, I'm just gonna turn my brain off. I'm just gonna do these things that I know are good for me. And that has allowed me to improve my motivation a lot recently. It's just getting back on those things that I knew were good for me all along. Even though, let's say, I'm trying to improve my motivation with school, okay, I could focus on all the school stuff. Or I could just stop thinking about what's most optimal, stop thinking about what's the perfect, timetable for you, the perfect schedule for you that's going to allow you to get the most work done, that's going to allow you to, have the highest output, have the highest motivation. If you just turn your brain off, okay, go back to that learner's mindset. I'm just here to improve. I don't know anything, okay? I'm just here to improve, and so I'm going to blindly, follow these things that I know that are good for me, that I've been told are good for me, and just see the results, okay? So that's another mindset shift that I thought about, that I thought, back then, that was really good. I had the right mindset then of just constantly improving, and that's why I made so much progress. Now, there's another mindset shift, another insight that I think is important when you're trying to improve your motivation, and that is that it's not instantaneous. If you think about when you start going to the gym, all right, if you have started going to the gym, you've probably experienced this, at the start, you don't totally enjoy it right at the beginning, but as you start seeing the progress stack, maybe one day you pull up your shirt and you see like the development on your shoulder or whatever it is, okay, as that progress starts stacking, okay, that's usually when the motivation really is going to kick up a notch, right? It's not always there at the beginning, right? You're going to start like this, all right, and as you get more and more involved in the thing you're doing, the motivation will take off. And then from there, it ebbs and flows. It doesn't always stay the same, all right? Like I said earlier, it's not something you can always control. But if you were just starting something, okay, understand that you might be motivated, like at the beginning of the year, most people are really motivated. Oh, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to do this, and then it dies down after. But for me and a lot of other people I know, the motivation increased as you started to see the progress. For the first little while, the gym can feel like a chore. But within, a month and a half of being consistent, now it's like, okay, I'm actually really enjoying this. Now it's like, oh, my lifts are going up, my form is getting better, my physique is getting better. You start noticing these things and you start to really, fall in love with the process. And then it's a lot more easy to be motivated for something if it's just something that you enjoy. So same thing with school, right? As you get better with school, as you start to see that progress, well, now you're going to be naturally more motivated because it's just something that you enjoy a whole lot more, right? If you hate school, if you just hate the thing you're studying and it doesn't feel purposeful and you just don't see a future in it and you hate going to school, you don't like any of this stuff, okay, well, of course, where's the motivation going to come from for something you just do not like, okay? So if you want to increase your motivation, we can just start to, hey, figure out how to enjoy that thing more, right? And so like I said, at the beginning stages of the gym, as you start seeing progress, as you start improving, you're going to enjoy it a lot more and you're going to be more motivated. Same thing would apply for school, all right? Let's say it's time, you want to start improving, okay? At the start, it's hard. You might not be enjoying the work. You might not be enjoying these things. But let's say 2 weeks later, you write a test, you get like a 95%, and now you're like, okay, that work paid off. Then you allow that success to motivate you. So you build on the successes that you have. You build on the progress and allow that progress to motivate you more. And so you can see how by understanding that the motivation, might not be there. The enjoyment might not be there right away, but as time goes on, as you progress more, it becomes more enjoyable. Therefore, whatever you're working on, school, gym, whatever it is going to become more motivated. You're going to become more motivated for that thing. Now, lastly, the last point I want to talk about, we talked about initially how you can mitigate your social media use. Then we said, some mindset shifts to have to improve your motivation. The last tip, the last, insight I have on motivation for school, for gym, for whatever it is to not rely on it, okay? We talked about it earlier. Motivation is awesome. This morning I woke up and I really wanted to record the 3 videos that I'm recording today. And so I felt good about coming and doing the work. It's awesome to want to do the work. It's awesome to feel motivated to go to the gym, to want to do these hard things that are good for you, okay? We talked about that. But you cannot entirely rely on motivation, because sometimes there's going to be the days that you're just not feeling up to it. Sometimes there's going to be maybe a week that you're not feeling up to it. If you're thinking on a large scale, let's say you have a 5-year goal, okay? There's going to be weeks, there's going to be a month maybe where you're not as motivated for something, all right? And we need to understand that is natural, okay? Having 100% motivation is not an achievable goal. And so instead, we want to have backup systems for when that motivation fails, right? It's nice to have, 60, 70% motivation, but then we want to have some options for the other, 30, 40% of the time. And I've talked about this a lot in another video, but those options are systems and discipline. And of course, discipline is pretty self-explanatory. It's just doing the work, even though you don't feel like doing the work. It's just doing, the thing that you don't feel like doing because you said you were going to do it, right? And this is beneficial because, the work gets done and you usually feel good about it after, compared to if you didn't do it, then not only did the work not get done, but you also feel bad about it after. So that's one thing. But again, we talked about earlier, discipline cannot exclusively take you through, because if you're constantly doing things that you don't like, eventually you're going to question, is this a lack of motivation, or is it that this thing just isn't for me anymore, right? And so the other thing you want to have is systems. And so systems basically makes it so, hey, regardless of motivation, regardless of discipline, I have this method that I implement that allows me to enjoy this activity, or that allows me to get through this activity with, minimal negative emotions towards it, right? So let's say you're struggling with studying, and every time you get home in the evening and you just have no energy to study, okay? Motivation is having the energy and feeling up to studying, okay? Discipline is not having the energy, not feeling motivated to study, but doing it anyways. Systems would be like, all right, we got to figure this out, because I don't want to be in a place where I'm always studying in the evening, even though I don't want to. There's value in that. There's value in doing the things that are hard, even though you don't want to do them. But again, if we're talking about sustainability, you want to have other options. And so systems would be like, hey, okay, we don't have the motivation, we don't have the energy, but we also don't want to be constantly forcing ourselves to do something that we don't like because we don't think that's going to be sustainable. Systems are like, hey, what's the workaround? What can we do here? And it's like, all right, maybe we can get up earlier and do the work in the morning when we have the energy, when we have maybe some more motivation. So that's another thing you should consider, all right? Know that the motivation is great, it's awesome, but it won't always be there. And so you need to have some backups. You got to have that discipline, but you should also be building systems to make it easier to have the motivation, to have the energy to do the things that you want to do. So that's the video. These action items, these mindsets have really helped me recently with, building up my motivation again. And not only that, but they also were the things that kicked off my motivation at the start, 3 years ago, when I got onto the journey of improving myself, not just with school, but, gym, health, fitness, discipline, mindset, family, friends, relationships, all these other aspects of my life. And so I hope you see that value as well.